All right, welcome to the 5th week of the 6-week road to freedom. We're getting there, guys. We're only 1 week away from kind of like going through this entire thing here. Now, that doesn't really stop anything. I'm going to continue to do calls on a monthly basis where I'll bring in different types of people and we'll talk about all different walks of real estate. But the main goal of this 6-week to freedom is really just to get you very comfortable. A lot of you guys are new, so it's really just to get you comfortable in the business and let you understand so you can see this industry from start to finish. When I first got started, it was very difficult for me because I just didn't know all the steps, and it was tough for me just to kind of go blind without knowing what to do next. And to tell you the truth, that's the only thing that you can do in the beginning is just go blind and make your mistakes. But by going through this course here, it's really exciting because you guys are going to now start to see it from start to finish. You're going to be able to explain it to somebody, put it that way. You know, there's how many times that people came up to you and say, oh, what do you do? Oh, I buy and sell houses. Well, no, well, how do you do that? Okay, well, it's pretty easy. First thing I do is I have this nice system that I work off of. Second thing I do is I set up some marketing. I set up some direct mail. I build some relationships with realtors. And then I start talking to people about their problems as far as direct sellers, or I help the banks out by buying some of their properties that they have, REO properties. And from there, basically, we analyze the deals. We figure out how much they're worth. And then we send out our contracts and our offers. Once they get accepted, we then go ahead and market for a buyer, and then basically we flip these properties and I get paid in the end. So once you understand that, once you can see it from start to finish, it's really, really simple. So in week 1, we talked about setting up your system, setting up the foundation of the business, how to use the application, setting up your power team, setting up your outsourcers. In week 2, we talked about marketing. So once we have our team set up, now we have to market. We talked about different things, marketing within the system, the direct mail inside the system, instant leads, cash buyers. Talked about going down to the courthouse. If you haven't done that already, go down to the courthouse, start learning how to pull records and how to get business. In any business out there, I don't care what type of business this is, every single business you have to advertise. You have to talk to people. You have to figure out a way to be able to bring in an influx of leads. And in real estate, it's really easy. I remember when I first started and started to send out some direct mail stuff, my phone just wouldn't stop ringing. You know, it's not like that all the time. You have to be consistent with direct mail. But I was always in one of those businesses where I was calling people. I had to call somebody. I had to get on the phone and I had to call people. Hi, my name is Pete. I'm looking to do this, that, and the other. Do you think we might be able to do business together? And that was the one thing I hated doing. I loved what I did, but I hated calling people like out of the blue. Great thing about this business is that you could set it up where people call you. How much more comfortable is it when someone calls your phone? They're calling you and they're saying, hey, how you doing? I just saw an ad in the paper, or I just got your direct mail piece, or I just saw your bandit sign, or I just saw a flyer at a laundromat, or I just saw your car drive by with a sticker on it. I'm looking to sell my house. And then it's very easy to have these conversations. So it's a very, very important thing. And once you understand that this is the same way in a lot of different businesses, take your experiences that you've had in other businesses and just kind of lay it out the way that I have, and it'll start to make a lot of sense to you. So that was marketing within the 2nd week. The 3rd week, we talked about, now that I'm marketing, how the hell do I talk to these sellers? What do I say? How do I talk to them? And we talked about building rapport. We talked about making, pretend that it was somebody that you knew, a family member, focusing on the problems. You're in the solution-based business. What we're trying to do is figure out what the problem is, get down to the nitty-gritty, and provide a solution for that. So we talked about how to talk to sellers and getting to the problems and building rapport in week 3. Week 4, we talked about, now that we have a seller that's ready to go, that already says they want to sell their house, now I just don't know what to offer them. So we talked about in week 4 how to analyze properties, getting the wholesale value versus the retail value, looking into other comps, getting an idea of the neighborhood. We went through all those different things there, and it was an awesome call. And now what we're going to talk about is contracts. Okay, so now we have people that are ready to go, and we just need to send them over some contracts. And once they sign those contracts, we now have a deal that we need to go sell. So next week, what we're going to talk about is marketing for buyers and how to sell your deals. All right. First step is getting the deal. Second step is selling the deal. So we're going to talk about, just briefly, a couple different contracts. One thing I'm going to point out to you is that contracts are contracts. You know, you're not an attorney. The title company is going to help you out as far as contracts, but there's only a couple things, real big things that you need to know. And we're going to go over most of that today. And then also, Fan and Preston are going to have a special call. next week where they're going to go through this in depth about contract clauses and all different things and tons of different contracts. I'm going to keep it real simple because I don't want to get you confused. The stage that we're at in this 6 weeks to freedom is I got to send a contract, Pete. How do I do it? All right. I'm going to give you just enough information so you don't get confused. So you can just do one thing all the way through. You know, even if you just called one realtor, what we talked about before, you went to week 2 and you send out one direct mail campaign. You went through week 3 and you started talking to sellers. You went through week 4. Now you know how to analyze a property. And now in week 4, you know how to generate a contract and get it signed. After that, it's pretty easy. All we do is mark it for a buyer and then send everything to title company and get paid. All right, so let's just look at this deal right here. All right, this is a deal that we had in, and we figured out that we were going to pay, I remember last week, I think we are going to pay like $25,000 for this property, or $28,000. All right, so now my first thing is that I have to go ahead and send a contract to this person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the actions, or actually mouse over the actions, and I'm going to click Generate Contract. All right, so I'm going to click on Generate Contract, and it's going to walk me through what's called a contract wizard. All right, so first thing I'm going to do here is I want to pick out the type of contract that I want. In most cases, you're going to use, when you're buying a property, you're going to use 2 contracts. One is going to be the purchase and sale when buying right here, or it's going to be your state contract. And what we're going to do is after we fill out this contract, I'm going to show you how to fill out your state contracts. All right, so you're going to see exactly how to templatize those contracts. So in this case, purchase and sale when buying a property. All right, so I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on the next button. All right, from here, what they want to know is what's my sales price, okay? What's the contract price for the property? It's $28,500. The acceptance date, all right? Usually what we do with acceptance dates is that we usually put them out for 30 days, all right? So this is something that you're going to talk about with the seller when he finds out how fast they need to move, whatever the case is. But typically what we do is we put them out for 30 days. So let's just go out to, let's say, January 26th, all right? Deposit. Deposit is what a lot of people ask, and when you're dealing with sellers directly, when there's no realtors involved, these aren't REOs, deposits aren't that big of a deal. When you're dealing with REOs, you're gonna have to put real deposits up. When you're dealing with these people, most of the time they never even check, and if they do ask a question, I just tell them that the deposit's at the title company. Now, if you're one of those guys that you just want to make sure that everything is on the up and up, and you want to go ahead and leave maybe $500 in an escrow account at the title company so it's always there and you can use the same deposit for everything, you can go ahead and do that. I've never really been big on deposits. It's never come back to burn me, but I can't say that it won't come back to burn you. All right, so if you feel more comfortable giving people a deposit, that's up to you. I can tell you one thing, I don't ever give a deposit to anybody. And no one ever checks. So I usually put between $250 and $500 on the contract, and you can go down. So I was on the call with somebody the other day, and they're doing $1, and these guys just don't check. All right, title company. I can put my title company in here. You would put your title company. If you didn't know what your title company was, just write to be announced, TBA. No big deal. And the last thing is a closing date. So let's just go ahead. Actually, this is what we put out a month. The acceptance date would usually be within, like a couple days of actually getting the contract. So maybe you give them 3 or 4 days or a week, and what you would do in that situation is say, listen, I have offers out on other properties. I can give you like 3 or 4 days, a couple days to figure this thing out, but you're wanting to get them to make action very, very quickly. So you got to go back through some of the negotiation videos where we talk about how to get sellers to take action. And then what we do with the closing date is we always put the closing date out 30 days. So that's the only information that you have to fill out. At that point, you're going to do is you're going to click on Next. And from here, it's just going to fill out our contract for us. It's going to have the parties. It's going to have the owner of record. It's going to have the seller's address. This is the address of the property that we're going to buy. It brings in your company name or whatever you used when you set up your account. And notice what you're going to see here. After your company name, it says and/or assigns. That means that we have the ability now to assign this contract to somebody else. It's going to bring in, again, the subject property. It's going to bring in the sales price. And what I really want to show you, a lot of this stuff is just normal stuff: expenses, insurance, prorations, defects, judgments. You're just going to want to go ahead and read that stuff when you guys get some time. But to me, I don't even read it because it doesn't make a difference to me. I'll click on the second page, and I'm going to tell you what does make a big deal to me is under inspections. In this contract, now everybody that's listening to this call has this contract. Now, whether or not in your state you can use it or not, I'm not sure. But if you're doing seller direct deals, you can use this contract in most cases, and it's actually really, really good contract. It's a 2-page quick contract. It's easy. It doesn't get the seller, you know, too overwhelmed with a 7-8 page contract with all this fine print. It's really simple. But what I want to show you here is inspections. All right. Under inspections, what we have is this contract is contingent upon the buyer's inspection and approval of the property prior to transfer of title. This contract is contingent upon the buyer's inspection and approval of the property prior to transfer of title. All right, so what that means is that I have all the way up to the transfer of title to get out of this deal. That means that I'm pretty comfortable using this contract and getting houses under contract, knowing damn well that I can get out of these things. In most cases, I very rarely back out of a contract, but if you get into this situation, especially when you're brand new, and you make a mistake, which you're going to make, it's nice to know that you're protected inside your contract. And by having that verbiage in there, you are good to go. The only thing that you would do at this point in time is if you needed to cancel the contract for whatever reason, you're going to say, based off of the initial contract, I'm hereby have to go ahead and cancel the contract due to our buyer's inspection failing, and send them a letter and send it also to the title company, and you're good to go. All right, that's all I worry about. That's it. That's the whole contract. Everything else is filled out. I don't worry about one other thing here. That's it. So this is just our basic contract that's already set up for you. So from here, what you're going to do is just go ahead and title this, and I'm just going to have to do, let's do 6-week tests. All right, so that's 6-week test there, and then from here it brings in your e-signature, it brings in the date, it brings in all the information here. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Save Changes. And from here, what I would do is I would just email this contract out. I would print it. It's generating right now, guys, and if you see where it's generating, if it looks like it's been generating for a little while, what you do is just click refresh on your computer, and then 2 seconds later it will automatically set up. All right, so this is now our contract here. This is a contract that we have ready to send to the seller. I can view this contract, I can fax this contract, I can email this contract, and I can delete this contract. So if I want to view this contract, I can just go ahead and click on view and click on open, and from here I can print this contract out if I wanted to print it out. You could also print out blank contracts. If you're going to a seller's house and you don't want all this information set up, you can basically put the information in, but just don't put in the sales price and print it out that way, and then that way you can basically negotiate some of this stuff. So here you have it. Here's your contract all set to go, and from here all I would do is I would again click on fax or email and get that stuff out, or I would view it and print it and bring it with me. So in this case of this deal right here, let's go back to property details. So in this deal right here, we decided, we went through, we talked to the seller, it came in off of a flyer, we talked to them, we figured out what the price was by looking at the comps. We know that we're going to pay $28,500 for the property. And guys, again, if you didn't listen to last week's call, this is not going to make sense for you, so please go ahead and listen to them in order. All right, so we talked to the seller. At that point in time, we made a verbal offer over the phone that was going to get accepted, and then we went to actions and started to generate a contract. We generated a contract in 2 seconds, emailed it over. Now, what are you going to do? All right, now you're just going to wait for that contract to get back. Once that contract gets back, what you're going to do is now to start market the property, and we're going to talk about that all next week. But that's how easy it is to send out a contract. So for a lot of you guys have been stuck. I've had a lot of emails and phone calls, stuff into support, and people are like, all right, I already talked to the sellers, now what do I do? Or I figured out what the property is, now how do I set my contract up? And that's basically what you're going to do. Now, for you guys that are doing other types of deals, like REO deals, and you need to use state contracts, let me show you how to set up your state contract. And then what you can do is once you click on generate contract, you're going to have now that option, and I'll show you here. Florida state contract. So we already have ours already done. You can click on the Florida state contract, or if it's a California, whatever your state is. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you from start to finish exactly how I can upload a contract, templatize it, and set it up into my system so I never have to worry about it. And this is a state contract. All right, so I'm going to go up to setup, and from setup, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click. Okay, it brings me right into my document templates, and what I want to do is I want to upload a new template. Even though I have it in there already, I just want to upload a new template so I can show you from start to finish. All right, so the title I think is FARBAR. Actually, let's just browse my computer for it here. Let's do FARBAR. All right, here is the Florida contract. This is the Florida state contract. I don't have any other state, but you guys can get any state that you want. So all I'm doing is finding that in my computer. I'm clicking open, and now I just want to name this. So I'm going to name this Florida state contract. All right, Florida state contract. I'm going to save and close that. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to templatize these things so it auto fills the information. Okay, so what it's going to do, it brings in my Florida state contract. Now we just brought this in from the computer, right? And now what I want to do is I want to fill this thing out, and then I never have to do it again. All right, so let's just say that we are going ahead and we want to buy a property. All right, so the seller is either going to be the seller's name. So I have two different things that I can do here. All right, one is that I can just write in, I can click in here. All I do is click on this line. Once I click anywhere with my mouse, you're going to see that I have this little tool that pops up. So from here, what I can do is I can start to type, and I can type owner of record. All right, so I can type owner of record in here. So we don't know who the owners are of this property. Okay, and I can type owner of record. All right, the other things that I can do, if I didn't want to put owner of record, I actually wanted to put the person's information there, I would just go ahead and click on the trash can, and I would come up to property values. All right, so what we want to do is we want to click on first owner on title, second owner on title, contact person. We're going to click on property owners. Actually, I have to click in here first. And let's click on property owners. So get rid of this one here. All right, guys, one more time. Property owners. All right, so there's the property owners. Whoever owns the properties are going to come in. So you have two different things that you can do. One is you can put in owner of record, or you can just click property owners. All right, so it's going to take that information from your sheet. And then what you can do is you can take this hand here. You see my cursor is I can take this hand and I can move this into a spot that looks like it's on the line and it's pretty good shape. All right, so that's who the owner is. And anytime I want to get rid of this, I just click somewhere else and it'll disappear. Those things will disappear. All right, so parties, the seller is the owner of record, and who's the buyer? We're the buyer, right? So if we're the buyer, we're going to click into that second line, and we're going to go up to buyer variables, and we're going to do company. All right, so I buy my properties in my company. If you don't buy your properties in your company, that's fine. What you would do in that case is you would just go down and click on first name and then last name. All right, so we've set up the first two sections of the. All right, so we're going to go down and we're going to go and look in the second section here. So we need to put in whatever the county is. Now, if the county is going to change all the time, what's really simple, you have what's called an insert a custom variable. So we don't have any variables for county. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the line. Once I click on the line, and then I'm going to go up and click on insert custom. All right, so once I insert custom, now I can type in a custom variable. So I'm just going to write county. U-N-T-Y. All right, so it's going to bring that in. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the street address, city, zip of the property. So I'm going to click in here. And then what is that? That's a property value, right? It's based off of the property. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click on, let's do street address. I'm going to do an address, and then I'm going to hit space, and then I'm going to do address. then I'm going to hit space, then I'm going to do city, I'm going to hit comma, space, state. And don't worry if it goes off the page here. It's no big deal. We're going to move this around and change the font. And then the last one I'm going to do is zip. All right. And now if I take this hand, notice all my information is on this line. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I can move this around so it fits perfectly on there. All right. So now we have all that information. Now what I want to do is come down and put purchase price. Purchase price is going to be a custom variable. All right. So I'm going to click on insert custom. And then I'm just going to type price. I'm going to do the same thing for deposit. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to click on insert custom and I'm going to do deposit. And then I'm going to click on the bottom, last one, and I'm just going to do another custom variable and it's going to be balance. And I can always move these around again if I wish to do so. All right. So now we have all that set up. All right. Time for acceptance and offer of counteroffers. So here's what we talked about before. Okay. If this offer is not executed by the delivered to all parties, I'm not going to read all this information, all the legal jargon. Basically what it's saying here is that we have to make sure that once we put this contract out, there's a certain time frame in which this contract will expire. It's the same thing as a lot of different things in life. As far as anything that you have, it's like, hey, this is going to expire in 10 days or this offer expires in 2 days. Well, it's the same thing with a contract. The contract is going to expire. So this helps people as far as a call to action. It gives them the scarcity. It lets them know that they need to take action within a certain time frame. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click here inside the line here, and then I'm going to go up, and this is going to be property values, right? I think it would be property values. Actually, it would be acceptance dates. That would be buyer variable. Nope, actually that's going to be a custom. So what happened here is that, and I did that on purpose, so I wanted you to see, okay, what type of variable is it? Is it my variable? If I'm looking for an acceptance date, I don't see acceptance date anywhere, so that really wouldn't be mine. It wouldn't be a property value, and it's not a buyer value. So if you look at property values, you're looking at this as a seller values, buyer variables, your variables, and then anything that's custom. So again, this would be a custom variable. So let's go ahead and I'm going to click in here, and then I'm going to click on insert custom. All right, and then it's just, I'm going to write acceptance date. Acceptance space date. Okay, and then I can move this around again, set it up. All right, and continue to go down. All right, this is a cash transaction. If you usually have it with a cash transaction, most of ours are cash transactions. That's how we go ahead and label it up. So what I want to do is I want to click in here, move this little box right to where I need to, and then I'm just going to punch the X on my keyboard, and that is going to go ahead and set that up there for me. All right, so this is a cash transaction. Title evidence. So basically with the title in most standard real estate deals, the title is taken care of by the seller. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click down here so I can get my box, and then I'm just going to click on the X again, and the X will go ahead and fill the box out for me. So title evidence is by the seller, and then we're going to do closing date. Now remember, we had to do a variable here because we didn't have acceptance dates and closing dates. So I'm going to click in that line again. I know this is getting a little redundant, guys, but you have to go through this once and learn it. You'll never have to worry about it again. I'm going to click insert custom and then go back down, and I'm just going to write closing date. Closing space date. Okay, move the hand, get it all set up. All right, let's go on to page 2. All right, so we've set up the first section here in just a few minutes, and I'm going obviously a hell of a lot slower than I would if I was doing it, but just to show you how easy it is to set up these contracts, and you can come in and make changes anytime that you want. All right, so let's go down here, home warranty. I usually do NA, so I'm going to click the box and click X on my keyboard. It fills in the box and we're all set. All right, this is where you're going to do your special clauses. All right, in the next week, that fan and press are going to be talking about all the special clauses that you're going to be putting in your contracts. So I don't want to blow their boat over there. So we're going to talk about how to fill these things out, and they're going to talk about a lot of the special clauses and different things, which we spoke about the special clause that we had on the first contract. And in these contracts, they're slightly different, especially if you're a real estate agent or if you're not. So I'm going to let you go ahead and save that till next week. So this is really where you put your special clauses in, and you can change these. You can have ones that are standard in here all the time, or when you're doing your contracts, you come in here and type them up. It's totally up to you. And then the last thing we're going to do, in this case, we are the buyer, right? Because we're buying the property. So I'm going to click down here where the buyer is, and then I'm going to go up to my variables. Now, when it says buyer variables, it doesn't necessarily mean that your variables, okay, let me put it this way. Your variables are always you, all right? They're always you. And then the property variables are always the seller, and then the buyer variables are the buyer when you sell the property. Your variables are always the same, all right? So I'm going to go down to my variables, and I want to go ahead and put my signature in there. This is where I want my signature to be. So one quick thing about the signature. The signature is big, so what I like to do is I usually kind of center it a little bit, and I put it up slightly higher, all right? And the reason why I do that, and I'll show you why in a little while. And then we're going to go ahead and do date. So I'm going to click on date, and then I'm going to go up to my variables here, and I'm going to click on current date. And move that around. And the last thing I like to do is I like to go right underneath where it says buyer, and I like to print my name so it looks nice and professional. Alright, so it's all set, guys. That's pretty much the entire contract. So let's go ahead and save the changes. Alright, let's save the changes, and there we are. Florida Stair contract. Let's go ahead and change that there. Messed up. Florida State contract. STA State contract. All right, and you can put a description here, anything you need to do. I don't need to do that right now because I just want to go ahead and generate this state contract. All right, so now we set up this brand new state contract. We found it in the computer, we uploaded it, and then we just templatized it. I'm getting all tongue twisted tonight here for some reason. I'm not really sure. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to go to a lead. So I'm going to go to my dashboard, pull something off of my whiteboard. Let's go ahead and go back to that Judith Crescent property that we are working on, and I'm going to go over to the Actions tab. So if this was a case, if you guys are doing REOs or you need a state contract, you've just set it up. So let's go now and look at Generate Contract. And now I want to go find that contract that we had, just the Florida State contract. And I can tell you it's going to be a little messed up. The reason why it's going to be messed up is because the spacing is probably not going to be perfect. So let's click on Next, and this is just the second step. So now what's happening is that they're asking who the buyer is on this deal, and the buyer is going to be us. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and pick any buyer. Let's just go ahead and pick a buyer here, and click on Next. All right, so remember those custom variables? Look at the ones. County was a custom variable, price was a custom variable, deposit, balance, acceptance date, and closing date. So these are the only 4 things that we now have to fill out. So this was Hillsborough. The price, let's say $45,000. The deposit, let's say it's $500. The balance, 4,500 minus 500 is 44,500. The acceptance date, let's just put here, and let's go 30 days out for a close date. And click Next, and our contract will be completely generated. All right, just takes a second here to load up. And there we are. Okay, parties. Oh, we actually brought in the... Okay, parties. Let's see what we did wrong here. So it's good. I'm glad that this happened here because basically it didn't bring in. It has these guys as the seller, not as the buyer. All right. So So let's go back. Now that we see, let's just look at this spacing. All right, spacing's good. Everything is nice and clean. It's got everything on the lines. Let's make sure that the e-signature came in. All right, e-signature came in as a buyer. Okay, everything is good. Oh, so everything came in good, but there's something happened on that first page. All right, something happened here. So let's go back into setup and let's figure out what the heck happened. All right, let's click on setup and let's go back into our Florida State contract. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on edit. And once I click on edit, I can make some changes. All right, so let's see what we did here. Let's see where Pete messed up. Okay, so property owners, let's just, okay, so the property owners came in as seller. Alright, so it looks like what happened is that for some way, when I put in my company name underneath my variable as a buyer, alright, so all I want is my company name. And what I noticed here is that it said buyer company name, so somehow I just must have put in something wrong there. So really what we have here is we have property owners, and you know what I like to do is I just like to go ahead and put owner of record. It just makes it that much easier. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's click on here, then you can click on the trash can, and then I just like to type this in and it stays here all the time. O-W-N-E-R, owner of record. Alright, so we have owner of record here as the seller and then my company name as the buyer. Alright, and everything else was fine here. So let's go ahead and save this. Sorry for the confusion, but I'm glad that happened because, you know, for you guys that are home that are doing this, it might take you just a second to go ahead and make sure that everything is perfect, but once you make a mistake and you figure out what you did, that's the only way that you learn. That's the only way that I learn, is by making mistakes. So I'm glad that we're able to do that. So let's now go back into a lead here. Let's pick one here and let's go ahead and generate that contract again. So I'm going to go to actions, generate contract. I am going to pick the Florida State contract template. Then I'm going to click on next. Alright, it's going to ask me the same information here. So my county, the price, the deposit, the balance, the acceptance date. Let's just put anything here and click on next. I know this is a little boring, guys, but once you set this up, you're going to be so happy. All right, so now it comes in. All right, owner of record comes in as the seller. Real Freedom Property comes in as the buyer. You're in your county. It brings in the address. It brings in all the information. Everything is all set to go. Second page is all set here. The only thing you would do here is you put in any special clauses that you have, and then you might want to go ahead and just move the signature just to make sure it's lined up. And from here, I just click on Save Changes. And it's the same thing as the other contract. So once you save changes, it's going to go ahead and it's in an untitled document because we didn't go ahead and label it. Click on refresh. And here you go. You have the untitled document, which was our state contract, and then the one that we did before, which was the 6-week test, which is our regular contract. So within just a few seconds, we're able to get those contracts in place. We can upload any of the state contracts. Then we templatize them. Man, I'm never going to get that right. And once we templatize them, now we have them in the system. So if I'm doing an REO deal, what am I going to do? I'm going to go right into my state contract. I'm going to go through the information. I'm going to be able to send that out. If I have just a regular seller direct deal, I'm going to go right into our contract, our 2-page contract. I'm going to go ahead and fill it out. I'm going to send it out, email or fax. So what I would do in this situation is now that I've sent that contract, let's say I faxed it or email, and it's really easy. If you guys haven't watched the videos, you're just going to click on fax. If you want to fax this contract, you put in the fax number, you put who it's from, click send fax and close. If you want to email this contract, you just click on email. and you're going to be able to search your database for an email. And if they're not in the database, in the FreedomSoft database, you can just put their first name and their email in, click on next, and it'll email it out. So what I do as far as following up is huge. I can't stress it enough how important following up is, because I can't tell you how many deals we put contracts out and then all of a sudden it's 2 months later that we follow up. Usually we'll follow up after like 15 days, then it's 30 days, and say, hey, I just wanted to I know we had a good conversation on the phone, Mrs. Smith, and I know you weren't ready to sell at that point in time, but have you had any luck selling? And she'll say, no, I still haven't. You know what? Let's just go ahead and do the deal. I like you, Pete. Let's just go ahead and do it. You know how often that happens? Let's say that happens 5 times a year. All right? 5 times a year. And an average sale on properties, let's say, is, we get usually 10 grand. That's an extra $50,000 a year that we get just from, let's say, following up. And it's really easy to do within the system. All you're going to do is click on the task. So after I send the contracts out, I always click on the task. And then from here, what I want to do is I'm just going to hit and add a task. And I would put title, follow up on contract sent. And then I would write a description, sent contract follow up. All right, and then I would put my start date and my due date just by clicking on the little calendars over here. You set those two up, you click on save and close, and then as soon as whatever that start date is, so if you're going to give yourself like during a certain week, whatever you put the start date to the due date, that is when it's going to show up on your whiteboard. If you only put the start date and the due date of one day and that day passes, then this could get lost in the system. So you want to make sure that you put the date range, and if you can't get to that task for that day, you need to come back in here and edit the task so you can change the date. All right, so that's what I would do, and I would set up a task. So what we've just gone through right now is pretty much the entire process of setting up your system, marketing, all the way to figuring out what a property's worth and sending a contract. All right, there's one other contract I want to show you here, and again, this is a contract that we use. So I'm going to go back over to setup. And we went through 2 contracts so far. First contract we went over was our normal 2-page contract when we're buying a property. All right, we're going to get to the contracts that you use when selling a property when time is right for that. But right now we're not going to jump ahead of ourselves. We're just going to talk about the contracts that we use in buying properties. So that was the 2-page that you guys have. Then we talked about our state contract to upload and templatize. And the last one I want to talk about is option to purchase. So let's just go ahead and just view this right now. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and run it. Let's just run a 3rd contract. Let's go back to this lead here. And from here, I'm going to go back into my property details page, and I'm going to click on generate contract. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick option to purchase when buying a property. All right. And let's click on next. All right, option price, option period. Option price, let's say, is $50,000, and option period, let's do 90 days. All right, click on next, and I'll tell you what those two mean in a second. So I'd take my signature. I just want to move this up a little bit. Actually, let's just move that up a little bit. Everything is good. All right, now I'm going to walk you through this contract. All right, so parties. So here's the date. This is an option agreement is entered in between the parties, seller and buyer, below in consideration of a subject property, okay? So parties, Real Freedom Properties and or assigns as buyer. Again, we're set up as and or assigns, and then we have the sellers that have come in here. This came right off the property details page as the seller. We have the property address, and then what it is that we have an offer, which is the buyer has the option to buy the property for $50,000. And a period is within 90 days. So within 90 days, I can go back to this seller and say, okay, I'm ready to what's called exercise my option. And this is what a lot of new people use this also. What this is this is basically going to the homeowner, and if they want too much money for their property or whatever the case is, and you're not comfortable putting it under contract, so what you're going to say in that situation, you're going to say, hey, listen, This is typically too much money for me to buy the property. All right, for my exact business, I can't pay that much. I'd be out of business. All right, but if the seller is really gung ho and you know that you're not going to be able to get them to budge, they don't want a realtor and they're just tough to deal with, or whatever the case is, you can say, however, what I've done with some other people is I have a pretty extensive buyers list. I have a lot of people that are on there. People call me all the times to get properties. What I would be willing to do is actually to put your house under option. And the seller is going to say, what do you mean put the house under option? And say, well, basically what it is that we're going to agree on a price. All right, so it's $50,000, and then we're going to agree on a time frame. Let's say it's 90 days, 120 days, whatever the case is, that I can go ahead and bring in a buyer. All right, so if I go and bring in one of my buyers and they're qualified and ready to go, I have the opportunity within this period, this 90 days or 120 days, to exercise my option of this $50,000 purchase. All right, so this is how it would work. I'm on the phone with somebody. I figure out this is some perfect person for an option agreement, and I tell them the story. I said, listen, this is what's going on. It's too expensive for me to buy. However, I do have a lot of buyers. What would you say about putting this under an option, which means that I have the option to buy at this price, which is $50,000, over the next 120 days. So if I bring in my buyer, I'm just going to go ahead and now set up a contract with you, a regular purchase and sale agreement for that $50,000. And basically what you're going to see down here is a provision. The seller, which is him, may cancel this agreement at any time if they find their own buyer with an executed contract before the option is exercised. So if he comes and says, hey, I have a contract that's all signed, okay, great, thanks for the opportunity. Now, however, if you bring a buyer and let's say that you market this property for $55,000, you have a $5,000 spread. So you can market this property at $55,000, you bring in a buyer, you go back to the seller and say, listen, I need to exercise my option. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to close. He says, okay, great. So you're going to put a contract together for $50,000, and then you're going to use an assignment contract to your buyer for $5,000, make your $5,000 and go home. All right, that's just a one-page simple agreement called an option agreement, and it's really simple. It's self-explanatory. Read it through, and there's a lot of times that we use these. We use these when we're selling other people's properties a lot of times. So if you're new and you're trying to sell another wholesaler's property, you might want to put an option on it, especially if they own it. And then we use this contract for situations where the owner just won't go as low as we want and he doesn't want to deal with a realtor. So we'll say, hey, listen, I don't mind kind of blasting this thing out. Let me put it on an option. And so we do that. So the 3 contracts that we went over today is we went through purchase and sale with our 2-page contract. We went through the state contract, how to upload it and templatize it. I got it right this time. And then we also went through an option agreement. Those are the 3 contracts that you're going to use when you're buying a property, meaning that when you're making an offer. Those are the 3 contracts that you're going to use. You're probably not going to use anything else. So don't worry about learning all the different contracts that are out there. Just stay consistent in what we're talking about here. So out of these 3 contracts, you now know, first of all, the out clause in our 2-page, which talks about that you can get out up to the day of transfer of title. Next Tuesday, you're going to hear from Than and Preston talking about some other contracts, some other contract clauses. They get quite lengthy. Contract clauses that you can put in your state contracts, and we're going to be talking about that next week. And then we just went over the option agreement. So you guys should be really, really prepared and really excited to now start sending out these offers, knowing that you're protected and having a couple different ways that you can go and knowing which way to go. I'm dealing with REOs, I use a state contract. I'm dealing with just regular seller directs, I'm going to use this 2-page. I'm dealing with somebody that doesn't want to give me the best price, let me use this option agreement. You guys are in great shape now. That's all you need to know about this stuff as far as contracts right now. And like I said, next week you're gonna have a whole bunch of different things. So let's go back here and let's see where we're at. Let's go back into that lead here. All right, let's go back to that lead there. And let's see what we can finish up with. Basically, that's pretty much it, guys. The only thing that we would do from here, we went through the property details, we talked to our seller, we went through the comps, we set our tasks up, we generated our contract, we talked about outsourcing the lead, and then next week we're going to talk about marketing. So you pretty much at this point in time should have a really good understanding of this business from setting it up all the way to sending out your offers and your contracts. And that's all I want you to know. I just want you to take it step by step. So if anything is not making sense to you, the first time around usually doesn't. So I would suggest that you go back through all the way through week 1 and start to go through these things until it sinks in, and then you're gonna be like, damn, now I know what he's talking about. Now I get it. Now I get it. I tend to talk a little bit fast. I'm trying to keep this on an elementary level here, but you got to go back and look at some of those videos if this stuff is not making sense. But you guys are in good shape up to this point. You're all set up. The only thing that we have to talk about now is how to market for buyers once you get these contracts accepted, and that's pretty fun. We're going to talk about the marketing tab inside of FreedomSoft here, which is the property syndication wizard, and we also have our email blast that goes in there also. So basically we have a syndication wizard which we blast out to all these different sites, your buyer site, your marketing flyer, and then we can do email broadcast to all the buyers list that are in here, and then we have a host of other things that we do to get your property sold, and we should be all set to do that. So hopefully you got a lot out of this call here. You understand contracts. You understand how to templatize those contracts. You understand basically what contracts to use in different situations. And I cannot wait to see you guys next week. It's going to be awesome. All right, talk to you soon.